I think about Nehemiah. In the book of Nehemiah, we hear the story of how he heard about how terrible the condition of the city of Jerusalem was, that it had no protection, the walls were destroyed, and he became very sad, and he fasted and he prayed, and he he approached the king. He worked for the king. He was the wine taster. To me, that's not, it's not a very good job, because basically it's because the drink that the wine or that the king's going to drink may be poisoned, you know? And so, I mean, it's a very important job. I don't know about job security, but, so he goes up to the king. That day, the king notices that he is not his joyful self. And, you know, I don't know if maybe since he's the wine taster, I don't know if maybe the king thought, hey, I don't know if I like how he looks today, I mean, this wine could be loaded or whatever. So he says, well, what's wrong? Why are you coming today? Why you look the way you do? You look a little sad. I'm imagining this. The story doesn't go into all that detail. But then he shared. He had prayed that God would give him favor. And he had that project on his heart. He wanted to help his people. And so the king says, well, we're going to help you. We're going to give you letters. We're going to give you whatever you need and supplies. You'll be able to go through all the provinces to get over there with these letters, and you'll be able to help your countrymen. And so God, he stepped out. If he had not stepped out, if he had not prayed, things could have been different. He really probably couldn't even talk, in his job. That wasn't his job to chit chat with the king, but he had such a good sterling character, and the king had a good relationship with the king. So Nehemiah pressed forward. And that's what we have to do. We have to press forward when God gives us a vision. When you begin to fulfill God's will, almost always that will in ministry is to take territory from the enemy, whether it's helping someone, reaching them with the message of Christ. You're taking territory from the enemy. I don't know what the vision is, what God is calling you to do. But when you do that, you'll find that sometimes you're going to face some challenges. There'll be close allies that may abandon you, turn against you, sow dissension behind your back. Emergencies will threaten the work. There are a lot of things that can happen. Look at Nehemiah. I got a little list here of things that he had to face. First of all, he had to call a town meeting and challenge everyone to get on board on this project. You know how that can be very difficult. But he fired them up, okay? And he was kind of a stranger because he hadn't been there for a long time. And so also, as he moved forward, he was mocked by his enemies, who said that even a fox would knock those walls down, climbing on those walls. In other words, they were mocking whatever work was being done there. And they drew up false legal papers to try to stop him. They sent letters out to the king to try to stop the project. They threatened to attack the builders and kill them. You know the story, when Nehemiah heard about this, he had everybody carry a sword with him. They would carry stones and move them, but they had a sword at their side. And he set up watchmen on the walls so that if there was a problem, everybody could rush over there to protect. They even tried to draw Nehemiah out of the city so that they could assassinate him. Read the story. It's amazing, all the things that he had to face. But he and the people persevered, and they were protected by the Lord. And the wall was built in record time. Talk about pressing forward under adverse conditions. But Nehemiah was undeterred, and the walls were rebuilt. Well, I don't know what God is calling you to do. I talked about sharing personal experiences. Our school, that school that I mentioned, we launched out the first year. We had 70 students. We met in a house while we built the school on the property. But in the middle of that, we were really challenged. And we were challenged because our daughter, who was teaching in the school, was in a car accident and she passed away. She was in a coma for 3 weeks and she passed away. Now, I don't understand why these things happen, but I trust God in the middle of everything. And to me, this was a huge deterrent. We could have left the school. In fact, we closed the school for a week because we didn't know exactly what her condition was. And we were hoping she would, recover. She had suffered a head injury. But we felt that if we were to stop the school, that would be the end of that project. God had brought us through, he'd done some miracles. He let us know that the school was to go forward. And so we continued. And today, this last year, I think maybe 25 students graduated from our school. And there we have about, this year, we may have up to about 400 kids studying at our school. The school has been has been working now for about 23 years. So we have, and it's a Christian school. Our staff are Christian, and we try to put the message of Christ, we emphasize how important it is for them, not just to teach academics, but to help to know Christ, practical way in their lives. And so we're believing that we're changing the future of our city and maybe the country with some of these graduates. Probably 98% go on to the university. And so we're very excited. But we had to press forward under some very tough decisions. And so I encourage you, maybe you've gone through something really bad, really hard in the middle of your fulfilling what God is calling you to do. But I want to encourage you not to give up, but to hold on to the vision, Even if you don't understand why these things happen, trust God. One day I thought about this a lot, and I thought we're always, as a committed Christian, we're always telling God, I'll serve you no matter what. I give my life to you. Take it, do with me what you want, And then when bad things happen, we can forget that we've said that. But for some reason, if God is taking us at our word, then maybe something tough is coming down the road for us, because God wants us to help others. He wants us to we made it through there. He wants us to show others how to make it through there. And that's hard to take, especially when we're talking about the loss of a loved one or a family member. So the enemy can attack your family to sidetrack you from fulfilling your vision. If you have a vision, you're a target. How to discourage or tempt you to sin or pressure you to give up is par for the course. He puts roadblocks, obstacles in the way. At our school, we had a terrible summer. One summer, I think it was the second summer. Talk about the school was going strong. I guess it was the second summer after we were in the building. So the school was going really strong. Everything was positive. And then Debbie arrived at the school one morning and a security guard had been murdered. She was the first one to find the body. He was murdered by his brother-in-law. And, that was kind of bad because, of course, it was on the news and everything. And then that same month, 2 kids that were going to our school were kidnapped on the way to the school. And so, and the press said that they were kidnapped at our school. so, the press was discrediting our security or whatever, you know. So it was bad, but it was bad enough. But we prayed. Those kids were found, and they were freed 3 months later, with a lot of prayer. A missionary who was bringing students to our school. This is during the same 3-month period. Runs off with one of the high school girls, takes off, abandons his family, doesn't tell the parents of the girl, and they take off. And the only thing that saved is because, missionaries it's very important that they keep a good reputation. If we do something bad, people look up to us as missionaries. And so this was a terrible example. And the only thing that saved us from not hearing this on the news was the fact that the kidnapping was going on. The kidnapping was going on at the same time. So that was what was on the news. So this never hit the news, but it could have been real bad. Missionary runs off with a young girl, at La Vega Christian School, because he took her right from the school. She was 15 years old. And if that wasn't bad enough, then we heard our son, our oldest son, during this 3-month period, had like a nervous breakdown there in the Dominican Republic. And we had to have the police and the hospital people come and put him in a car by force and take him to a clinic where they could help him. And this was a lot. This is a lot to take in. And that's 4 things I've mentioned that were terrible. But then we got the news that our daughter was pregnant out of wedlock, and we're ministers. This is all in this short period of time. And let me tell you, that is a lot of pressure. But you know what? God brought us through that. My son became a right-hand man to us on the mission field. So helpful. We miss him now because he just moved. And my daughter, she married the young man, and today they're pastoring, and they have 5 kids, beautiful grandchildren of ours. And God can turn things around, but we have to hang in there and trust God and believe God and not be discouraged. The enemy would have liked to shut the school down, but he wasn't able to. And today the school is functioning and preparing children and young men and women to serve God wherever they go, whatever God calls them to do. What the enemy meant for evil, God has meant for good. You remember the words of Joseph? He had a vision, and few people have had their vision challenged as he has. He actually received, remember, a second dream, confirming the first dream. You remember the dream, and basically it was interpreted as that his brothers and his parents would bow down to him. And that dream resulted, which is kind of interesting. It tells you that you need to be careful about who you share your vision or dream with, because in this case, when his brothers heard about it, that was it. They were so jealous that they, threw him in a pit and sold him to some slave traders. And he ended up a slave in Egypt. And that was certainly a challenge to his vision. Everybody's going to bow to him. How's that going to happen when now he's a slave in Egypt? He could have been discouraged, but I believe he held on to that. He really held on to that in his heart. You remember what happened next? The fellow that bought him had him working around the house. And before you know it, he was such a good worker, Joseph was, that he put him in charge of his whole household. And things were going good until the mistress decided that she wanted to have some fun with him, apparently. and she tried to get him to enter into, sexual relations with her, and he resisted, and she felt, I guess, that rejected and decided to cause trouble for him. And the next thing you know, he is then being put into the prison. This guy was an official of the house. He was an official of the Pharaoh. So he was put in the royal prison, is what I believe is where he ended up. And so, where's the vision? What's going on? I don't see anybody bowing to him there in the prison. But you know what? He was such a good prisoner, model prisoner, and they gave him some responsibilities. He carried them out great, which encourages us always, whatever we do it as unto the Lord. Whatever work we have to do, whatever God's put before us, let's do it as unto the Lord. Do it to the best of our ability. And then finally, the story of Joseph, how the two guys get thrown in prison from the king's palace there. And eventually, after a few years, one of them, when Pharaoh has a strange dream, one of them tells how Joseph had interpreted his dream. And the king asked him to come out, and Joseph was able to interpret the king's dream. And all of a sudden, he finds himself fulfilling that vision that was in his heart, as in a few years, his family would come down into Egypt and see him as the ruler of Egypt, second only to Pharaoh himself. I want to encourage you to press forward. Whatever God has put in your heart, press forward, believe, trust in God. If you need a confirmation, ask for a confirmation. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit of how God has helped us to press forward. God bless you.
Thanks so much for watching TMCI TV. If you found any benefit in this episode, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and ring the notification bell so you can stay up to date with our future videos. If you are interested in planning a church, starting a ministry, or looking for 501c3 tax exemption status for your existing church or ministry, TMCI can help. Click the link in the description below for more information. We look forward to hearing from you soon. God bless.